If you want me, if you need me, I'm yours.
Welcome back. I'm trying to be consistent, can you tell? I'm trying to be here like every day. I'm trying to be here like it's just like the wheels are turning. The cogs are turning, things are happening. It's getting exciting. Things might work out. You never know. Like even yesterday I was kinda like not bearish. But like after Michael Saylor came out, it was just like I'm gonna sell some Bitcoin just to prove a point. And, the market sort of like knee-jerk reaction, like what the fuck is he talking about, blah blah blah. And it just made me feel sort of a way of again, I think everyone felt sort of like, come on man, I think retail, I think anyone who's still here has just had enough of the bullshit. I was about to start swearing, but like of the bullshit of like what's been happening over the past 18 months. I mean, obviously it's not obvious, but like potentially it could just be a situation where the market goes sideways until the fourth quarter. But there are signs, man. There are things out there that potentially could move the needle in the direction of bullishness. And I know it's hard to say. And the thing is, when the bull market starts, it starts off very quiet. It's like rumblings. You only have to look at like the Bitcoin price. I'm not even gonna say the ETH price. I'm always looking at ETH, but it's just like the most depressing thing ever. And like, okay, I mean, this looks like a massive coiled spring. At some point, it's gonna find some sort of catalyst that's gonna push it over the edge. But I mean, I don't know when the hate for ETH is gonna stop or end. It's just a continuous like. People just don't like Ethereum, innit? Like, I don't know. Obviously, if they've got a massive community, followers, loads of devs build on ETH, smart contracts, everything is like, brilliant in terms of like ETH, yeah. Okay, but like the actual hatred for, the actual token, I don't know where it comes from, why people don't understand it. You can see on the chart, like right now, even on my watch list or whatever, everything is green apart from ETH. And it's been the case for like 3-4 years now. It's topped out twice at the same around the same price, and since then it's just been like sideways down. Even that last run up to the previous all-time high, where it double topped, even that was just like it was like the last gasps of the bull market. Going in from like March. I mean, basically around now these times, like March all the way through, it just sort of ran up. So it might be a good sign to start like hedging your bets if you're not already in. If you haven't allocated capital to your favorite assets, the ones that you see potential in, the ones that could potentially turn around your life in some way and give you meaningful returns. It might be time to start allocating a little bit of capital just to say like, okay, at least I'm in and I don't have to think about it, so yeah, massive potential with ETH. I feel like at some point it's just gonna rip, but who knows, with like the Ethereum Foundation selling constantly whenever there's like some sort of like uptick in price, there's always going to be like that sell pressure. But in saying that, they do it OTC. It's not like they sell on the open market. I don't think they do anyway. But it makes you question, like, if the Ethereum Foundation is selling assets for business development, why would a retail participant want to hold it other than to pay for gas on the world computer? It is supposed to put oil after all, and oil is not supposed to be expensive. Even though 2,350 is a reasonable price for ETH, but given like everything that's built on top of it, the weight that's on top of it, fair price. I still feel like it's got a long way to go. You could get a nice 5x out of it. I can see it hitting 5 figures in this next bull run, which would be extremely impressive and beneficial to all of us, whoever is holding. But what do I want to talk about today? A few days ago, I covered something called Sato. And yes, I think I found the coin that's going to push me over the edge. I mean, I'm hoping and praying. And, I've read loads of books, you listen to like gurus, or like, you get a little snippet from TikTok, or something gets fed to you somewhere through the the doom scrolling, where it's just like you should never talk about the plans that you have, because like it sort of brings negativity, and it tends to be that once you start talking about these type of things, they don't work out. So especially just keep your plans to yourself, and if it works out, then great. If it doesn't, then you just sort of like do what that guy from Succession does, or did, where the rocket blew up in the sky. He just closed his phone, washed his hands, and walked out the bathroom. It could be that type of situation in regards to the token I'm talking about, like, which is Sato. But it's really interesting. The contract dropped a few days ago. I would say on the 3rd of May. So 4 days ago, the contract dropped. Very anonymous. It's a V4 hook attached to it. And I'm sure I went over the details of it. I sort of ran briefly through it. But what's interesting about it to me is the curve. Like if you're looking at price action right now, you can see that there's potentially a parabolic curve coming up. And who knows how long it's going to take to get there. But the way I think it works, because I've read the white paper several times, I've listened to commentary on it. The way it works is that the reserve, which is up here, which is currently at 3.13 million, is actually locked. So that should sort of like give you a price floor, or it allows for larger participants to get in and out. So basically, it's sort of like your liquidity pool. So the liquidity pool is currently worth 3.3 million. So anyone who wants to buy a big amount of this token can. This actual website, this Sato.org or Sat0.org, is open, so you can actually mint some of these tokens. So basically, when you buy it, the ETH that you've used to buy the token actually goes into the reserve pool, which is locked. And I don't think you could touch it. It's just there to provide liquidity for people to trade in and out of. And then if you were to sell it, the Saito that you sell actually gets burnt. So it actually returns back to the supply, but it gets burnt. So it's no longer in just sitting there wherever it is. I don't know if there's going to be So that's the end of that. So there's like a curve here, and once a certain amount of supply is locked up within this website or in the liquidity pool, which I believe is like 3,000 ETH, 3,000 ETH, which is about 6 mil, I believe. It's about $6 million. Once that's reached, basically there's no more minting. All of the tokens, all of the supply will be issued out or purchased by participants who visit this site. And then the website basically closes down in 2027, and then that's it. But then obviously people are going to build liquidity pools on exchanges, on decentralized exchanges, and people will be able to trade it. So yes, the cap is at 21 million, reduced to about 20,740,000, I think it is, for reasons I'm not going to get into. So yeah, you'll never actually reach the highest cap of 21 million. So yeah, all we need locked in this reserve pool is 3,000 ETH, which is a lot, but currently it's like halfway there, nearly halfway there. So every time, like I said, a buy or sell happens, people pay ETH, that ETH goes into the pool, it gets locked, and that's it. The admin keys have like been burnt. No one knows who's actually dropped this thing. But yeah, it looks like this is the play for me anyway. So yeah, originally I bought like a very small amount because I was thinking it's a scam, and indeed I was sort of felt vindicated in that thought, because the price dropped 50% after I purchased. I think I bought it at like 30 cents, and then it went down to like 15 cents, and I was just like, okay, whatever. But then the price recovered today with this astronomical candle. It just shot up. And I thought, okay, around 32 cents, I just bought more. So I just put like a bigger bit in. So I'm holding a small portion of this token. Relative to the supply, 21 million is, if that sounds familiar to you, that's the amount of Bitcoin that's out there. Or, Bitcoin hasn't even got that much supply because people have lost keys, and, they've done silly things with it, and it's basically gone forever. There's that famous story of that guy who had his wallet locked on a laptop, and his missus threw out. He threw out when he was moving, and he spent millions of dollars trying to find this laptop. In the end, he found it, but it turns out something happened, and he only had Bitcoin Cash, but it was still worth what he did. And there was the whole story behind it. And then there's the Bitcoin pizza guy. Someone paid 20,000 Bitcoin or something along those lines for some pizza. No one knows what happens to that Bitcoin after. It just got spread out amongst everyone else. And it's sort of like the same thing along here. I'm not saying, okay, before we get like too excited, I'm not saying that this is the equivalent to Bitcoin, okay? Nothing's going to be the same as Bitcoin. But what I'm saying is the idea of it is sort of along those lines of that ilk. So if you're thinking in respect or in regards of that, you'll buy Bitcoin for 69 cents, you know? Like if you've got like a certain amount, even like 100 or 500, imagine you hold it and you just forget about it, you know, it's in your wallet, it is what it is. And then, you know, in 5 years it's worth 60k or like, you know, 20k. You're going to be laughing, innit? Like, you know, you're going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe that I held this thing. So it's got massive potential, I feel. In regards to price action, you know, you can see that every time like ETH is accumulated or like put into the reserve, the supply increases incrementally because people are buying, obviously. But the more closer it gets to the actual, you know, infinite moment where like 3,000 is in the reserve, 3,000 ETH is in the reserve, the closer you get to it, the less supply is minted. So obviously price follows that. And as you can see at the bottom, price is currently at what, 70 cents? Yeah, around 70 cents. There is a parabolic move here. The reason why the parabolic move is going to happen, or will happen, or potentially could happen, is because it takes less ETH locked in the reserve to move price, as well as like demand and other, you know, clever things that whoever built this has built into this thing. Apparently, this V4 hook, this Uniswap V4 hook, is not actually verified. You can check the code and everything like that, and it looks fine. Okay, so like at the bottom here, you've got where is it? I think it's on the white paper. The white paper, you can check the contract and everything here. It's got the addresses. You can check the addresses and everything like that to see for yourself. Just stick it in some sort of AI like Claude or Grok or whatever, and just have a look at the contracts and see if there's any sort of like, you know, thing that could potentially distort, you know, the price going up, or like, you know, fuck you over or you get rugged or something like that. Liquidity gets pulled from the reserve or anything. I don't think there is anything, unless there's some clever person out there who's going to hack. I mean, it's a pretty big target, you know, to try and hack the reserve. Because it's a Uniswap V4 hook that is, you know, sort of running everything, there potentially could be bugs in there that no one has considered. So yeah, there's definitely something to think about in terms of like how much money you're willing to risk on this type of protocol. But for me, it's an interesting experiment. Potentially it could be massive, especially if it does actually meet the 3,000 ETH reserve, because that allows for bigger participants to buy on secondary markets for substantial amounts of money, which would lead to higher prices. You know, like, is it a meme coin? Is it not? No, it's just a thing. Like, I don't know. You could call it a store of value if you want to. I wouldn't. But you know, the potential for this thing to actually do something massive, like in the short term, especially with this parabolic move up to I'll call it like the genesis of where, like, you know, the site shuts down and there's no longer any more tokens to mint, and then people can actually, you know, go out into the world, or like centralized exchanges will allow for trading and stuff like that. In terms of that, then, you know, it's got like massive potential in my mind. So currently, yeah, the market cap is at like 14 mil. Circulating supply is at 13.72. Liquidity, like I said, is like 3.16 million. And the fees burn is like 73, so it's burnt 73 ETH. So there is a burn function to it. I believe like maybe 80% of the ETH supplied or paid in to trade for this token or to mint it is put into the reserve, and then 10 or 20% is then burnt, which makes sense in terms of the burning. I don't know. I'm sure there's more to it than that. I'm sure like once the actual token is actually minted out, and, you know, the reserve has the 3,000 ETH, it then fires up a burn function as well. So if you actually sell your Sato, it actually burns it. But don't quote me on that. I need to do a bit more research, or, you know, my memory's quite fuzzy right now because it's quite late in the day. But yeah, there's definitely some information out there. In fact, I should probably, let me see, because I think there was like a conversation about it, and someone was saying that there is a burn function after the actual mint is finished. The 3,000 ETH is actually put in. Black hole, Sato, black hole, do you get it? Everyone's playing meme. But Sato's underlying logic is an electronic black hole. Most people think it's money pumping. Wrong. It makes money by burning. On capping day, the minting machine shuts down permanently. No new Sato exists anymore. From that moment on, every cell burns supply. Yeah, so 20 million tokens, 10 million tokens, 5 million tokens. Only decreases, never increases forever. I mean, I don't know if that's the best way to, you know, think about it, because like obviously if people are if it's just like an infinite burn on the token, then like yeah, I don't know where that's gonna go. I don't think that's gonna work out too great. Um, but its gravity keeps getting stronger. That's Sato's logic. So like basically, this is something. It is a store of value. You want to buy and hold this thing. You don't want to sell it, and anyone who sells it then it burns that away, so it reduces supply, which in an ideal world would increase the actual value of the token because there's less of it. But if the token has no utility, then yeah, potentially it could just, well, I mean, would it trend to zero? Given that the reserve has the 3,000 ETH in it, I mean, it's a great price floor. I don't know, man. I like, honestly, this is what's got me so curious about it. It's just like exciting for me to even think that something like this exists, and I'm able to participate in it so early on in its genesis. Potentially, this thing could be massive, or like, you know, everyone's just like sell it, or it just never reaches that magical 3,000 ETH lock to the reserve, and it just like stays in a range of like between, you know, 15 cents and 70 cents. Although it has broken above its previous all-time high today, a fresh day is starting, and it looks like continuation. Big purchases are starting to come in again. I believe Ansem tweeted about it as well. Not that that matters, you know. He's just a man. He bleeds. He's just a man, you know. But apparently he top blasted it at 70 cents. Who knows? I don't really follow what, you know, everyone else is doing. I'm trying to do my own thing. But if he did top blast it, he's in profit now, so he's smiling. So yeah, potential for this to reach like, you know, a massive valuation, and even in terms of like as in terms of like store of value, if there is a burn function of reducing supply, technically it would be a great store of value in terms, but it has to match, demand has to match that. So there has to be some sort of demand mechanism for it, which means that it has to be some sort of utility. And if that utility is something in terms of like TradFi taking it on and saying, look, you can add this to your balance sheet. There's going to be ETFs, like we have a substantial amount, we're holding it, we're never going to sell it. And even if they do sell that substantial amount, then it burns it and the price goes up. There's loads of ways that this could go. I'm trying to think of negatives. And the only negative I can think of is just like a lack of demand for the token. So people need to have like a genuine understanding of like what this thing is, and stop trying to treat it like a meme coin, as the OP, the original poster, said. Long-term impact of burn mechanism. After Sato caps, the total supply will only decrease, it never increase. When someone sells Sato, the contract burns those tokens. ETH is returned. Some people... Sato, when someone sells Sato, the contract burns the token. ETH is returned to the seller for the reserve. The burned token disappear. Okay, so like that means that the reserve is not locked completely. It basically means that so the reserved ETH is actually issued out. But then what's weird about that is that there's no, what about PvP? You know, like if I want to sell my token and someone else wants to buy the token, should it just be like a straight swap? You know, there should be buyers and sellers, isn't it? Unless you're just trading against the smart contracts. In that terms, if that's the case, if every time, I think this guy's got it wrong, because like he's talking about the actual this site, but once this, I believe, once this the 21 million cap actually mints out, or you know, close to the 20,790,000, and the reserve reaches 3,000, this site is no longer usable. So technically, like, you know, if the code is correct, if I understand it correctly, you won't be just minting anymore. There will be no mint function, so you will be trading in a PvP fashion with a reserve of 3,000 ETH that's locked forever. So that means that, you know, someone can actually build a liquidity pool of Sato USDC or Sato some other token. You know, there'll be loads of like different liquidity pools that where you can trade in and out for this token, but in its current form, the only thing that you could trade it for is ETH. I'm not sure if anyone's stupid enough or silly enough to actually have it on like on an actual decentralized exchange and create a liquidity pool for it. If they've done that, then it would basically affect the ability for Sato to come to fruition in terms of its mission, which is to have 3,000 ETH locked in it, and for it to, you know, have a good stable liquidity. I don't want to say pool, but like, you know, parameter. I don't know what the word is, but like, you know, it just basically won't compete its mission, because people will just be trading the existing tokens that are minted. So far the circulating supply, which is close to 20 million, is 19 million. 360,000. Yeah, that's up at the top here. But 24-hour volume, it's done 20 million in volume today. you know, in the last 24 hours, 7,177 swaps. So initially, when this thing launched, in order for it to combat bots, so you know, like someone would just snipe the whole supply at a really low valuation. There was like a max ETH buy of 5, so 5 ETH, which is around 10,000. 3 times 5, 11,500. So around 11,500 was max buy in the beginning. But even then, there was like some sort of like I wouldn't say like a tax, but there was like there was some sort of mechanism that wouldn't allow you to like basically snipe the entire supply. I'm not sure. I think it was more expensive or more costly to buy it down here. Yeah, the supply was 86,000, so the cap was 42. I mean, it moved quite quickly, didn't it? The supply moved quite quickly. So anyway, it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, it happened. But they did have some sort of function that wouldn't allow a sniper to basically take up all of the supply in the immediate. So yeah, if we go to something like bubble maps, let's have a look. This might slow down my stream a bit because it has to load it up. If we go to bubble maps, top 80 holders of Sato, and we check the addresses, you'll see that, and I know like this can be gamed as well, but you'll see that in bubble maps, no one owns more than 2% of the supply, which is like, in meme coin terms, that's really good. You know, like, you don't want someone owning like 12% of the supply and they can just dump it when the price goes to a certain thing. There's no bundlers in this thing. Like I said, the person who deployed the contract is anonymous. So yeah, there's lots of good signs in terms of this token. So I'm just hoping like I'm going to wake up tomorrow and it's going to be like something silly, some silly amount. You know, it would be amazing if it did actually, you know, just take off. It would give me a nice windfall going into Q4 for the bull market. Not that I would sell, you know. I'd probably end up holding it forever, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. So this is the token like I've chosen. There was like there was a decision to make, you know. I could have purchased like UPEG. I did hold some, but you know, certain aspects of it I didn't like. In terms of like everything that happened up until the infinite mint of like, you know, rarity kinds, and then the fact that the dev said, oh, I knew exactly that this, well, we planned for this, and you know, it's going to have a timestamp on the ones that are legitimate and the ones that aren't can't be traded on OpenSea. And you know, the aesthetics, in terms of aesthetics, like, you know, it's down to taste and blah blah blah. It's just like, okay, but you can't, because the contract is immutable. It means that, you know, an infinite amount of these UPEGs can be minted, regardless of like timestamps or stamps. When retail comes into the NFT market, if it starts booming again, they're not going to care. They're just going to buy the ones they like, and that could technically affect price. Not to mention, like, you know, anyone who is like minted out these NFTs, they're spending, or they're going to have to sell them at some point. And I believe the only way that you can sell your UPEG is from the supply that is initially 10,000. So like, yeah, okay, that guy's minted like, you know, 50 of identical monochrome UPEG NFTs, and he's thinking he's going to sell them on OpenSea for a profit. He can't do that now. So what is he going to do? He's just going to sell them. He's just going to sell his tokens, and those tokens are UPEG, which are in the circulating supply, which will affect price. So there's a lot of things to consider there. Until like, you know, those monochromes are basically out of supply or out of circulation. The price appreciation in terms of like, yeah, the token price going up is going to be stagnant, and you can see that in the chart already. It's already representing it. They had their big, you know, hurrah, it's trading on OpenSea, but the fact of the matter is, someone needs to sell their UPEG tokens. So if you're able to dissect it in your mind, it's a thing of like, yeah, okay, he's got these cool NFTs, but don't forget those NFTs are attached to the token, which is in turn attached to the total supply, because he hasn't minted new tokens from the supply. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like a virus within UPEG where, yeah, because you've got, I'm going to repeat it, because you've got these guys who have like, you know, minted 50 monochrome NFTs or however much it was, whatever percentage, it might be larger than that. Some people might even copy that. Those people need to sell those, and they can, and those are UPEG tokens. Okay, so until, yeah, am I the type of person that's going to go out of my way to you know, keep track of that? Absolutely not. Maybe someone could create a dashboard. You know, in the age of AI, it should be pretty simple. And once again, my nose is kind of blocked. I'm glad that no one watches my streams. So yeah, just give me a minute, and yeah, let me blow my nose and I'll come back. This happens every stream. It's part of the show. All right, just give me a second. Yeah, so as I was saying, you got to choose your, like, your horse wisely, or your rocket, or whatever you want to call it. Like, you're watching. Sometimes you're watching proponents from other streamers, or like people who are, I don't want to call them KOLs, but like people who have opinions, and they're streaming and they have their opinions or whatever. Some are massive. Like you got your thread guys. You got, I guess that's the only one really. I don't think anyone else is really streaming these days on crypto, because obviously it's frowned upon, and it's the most blocked subject on X, which is fine. Um, yeah, those people, they're interviewing others who are like more TradFi, more AI, more Bitcoin centric, more ETH centric, more main centric. But there are going to be runners that come out of nowhere, that people will be like, I knew it, I've got a bag, so yeah, you've got to keep your eyes peeled for new opportunities. I thought that UPIG was going to be something, but then obviously all that news that I just spoke about. But Sato, so far, nothing's happened. No one's like really flooded it or said anything bad about it. Apparently, it's got a massive Chinese community, which is a good sign, because whenever the Chinese are involved in something, they just throw money at it. Look at that, bang, 76 cents, beautiful, you know. So there are buyers out there, man. There are buyers out there. There are people who, and if people manage to spin the narrative that this thing is like, a smart contracted Bitcoin with a burn function, and it's a good store of value, and it's not scammy and blah blah blah. If it actually gets pushed to that level, like potentially it could be something that really moves the needle and like really accrues value fast. Because I think a lot of people who have been involved in crypto, or people who have been on the sidelines and missed a lot of it, once they see that there's an opportunity to get at a level of like $1, and they're thinking this thing could go to like the levels that Bitcoin has gone to, or even 10% of the levels that Bitcoin has gone to, which is like 10k, 6k, like 80k or 8k or whatever. If it gets to those levels and you've got like 100 of them, you're set for life, innit? But yeah, it's gonna take time. Or maybe not. Everything seems to be speeding up for me. Maybe it's because I'm getting old, but yeah, it seems like the narrative was caught on. The price is just like, yeah, boom, it's gonna skyrocket. It's a beautiful thing to be a part of. Yeah, and as I said, yeah, a lot of the people that are actually speaking about it are, in fact, maybe they've got Chinese names and they're LARPing. Because I don't know a lot of Chinese people on X, to be honest, like, or I haven't followed any. Where's he from? Japan. Okay, so the Japanese. Yeah, Japanese communities involved. Chinese have like built up their own like little Telegram groups and stuff like that. Be careful as well. Like, for me personally, if someone tries to like push me into a hut, like, or into a group, I tend to just reject it, because I don't want to be like thinking in terms of like group think. And the person who's running those like little networks and stuff like that, the reason why they do that is because they want to establish what everyone else is thinking, and it makes their thesis, or their decision making a lot easier. So I'm going to be on the outside of the herd and make a decision for myself. It tends to be that it comes to me at my detriment as well, in terms of like there might be something that's brewing, and like you've got multiple sources of information in a group chat. Maybe some of it's wrong, maybe some of it's not. Who knows? Who cares? But the benefit of it is, I guess, is that you would hear from things firsthand. It's a lot easier to get information. But for me personally, I would just stay out of any sort of like group chats or anything like that, and just like make the decisions for yourself. Long-term impact. The one thing that makes me kind of nervous is this Rune Crypto. Okay. I find that I'm just not sure about this guy. This guy was shilling a token, not like 2 weeks ago. I think it was like P Punks. Let me see. It was. Oh, I got it. This one. He was shilling this token a while back, Punk, and now it's sitting at like 130k. Like, I think this might be the one that moves on. There's like two versions anyway. Let me see how the other one's doing. Punk. But he's been shilling this thing like hard, and basically it was like a Punk token derivative that was issued to anyone who held a Punk. And the contract basically messed up issuing tokens to Punk holders, the NFTs, and then the Punk community came out and basically just said this is not legit, it's just another scam coin, blah blah blah. And he was fighting its corner for the longest time until, like, obviously, yeah, here we are, like, it's flat, no one gives a shit about it. It's probably him who caused this candle here that dumped. It's sitting at 130k. So yeah, just be careful of people like characters like this. They might have good alpha, potentially might have good alpha, but at the same time, it's just like, yeah, you kind of just want to like, yeah, not listen to these guys. And the fact that he's been talking about Saito for so long, it's just kind of like gives me room for pause. So you got to look into like who's associated with the token. Potentially, it could have been him who dropped this token. You know, like all this smart contract and this V4 hook. Could be. So you know, there's lots of things to think about in terms of like holding and whatnot. So you can see like articles coming out. I guess that's Japanese, not Chinese. Isn't it? I don't know the difference. Yeah, see, it's like, so he's shitting it hard. Yeah, I've seen some people say, you know, people laughed at me when I put it. Like, yeah, you know, maybe I'm biased. And, you know, because I've typed in Saito, it's just like giving me all that information. Seeing how fucking fake the shitty URLs, I think that Dog Dev was out scamming again. Yeah, so, you know, what does that mean? What does this even mean? What do you mean? Yeah, you don't have to buy it. Yeah, so like, yeah, see, so like, you know, there are people out there that are just sort of like pointing out this thing could be a scam. But we ride it. What's the saying? Scams pump the hardest. Apparently that's the saying. You know, scams pump the hardest. So we'll see. Maybe I wake up tomorrow and it's all gone. God, I hope not. I hope it's real. It's like I've been scammed so many times throughout the last year, 12 months, where I've bought a token. It's just like, it looks promising, everything looks good, and then a few proponents come out and be like, this thing's a scam, blah blah blah. Once again, it's like a do your own research sort of deal. It's permissionless, trustless. You know, the contract says it. The hook says it. There isn't any sort of function in the background where someone can backdoor you and steal the LP. So it looks okay. Imagine, like, you know, it's saying there the liquidity is like 997,000. When in reality, I guess that's on the Uniswap pool, right? So there are people actually trading this thing on the Uniswap pool. Let's have a look at that. The pair. Here we go. What is that? Scared. Yeah, there's nothing in it. So if I was to try and trade it now, for instance, and just say, okay, let me trade it. Trade on Uniswap. Can I buy and sell it on Uniswap? Has someone created a pool so they can trade